We need to learn to contend for the miraculous, not just to meet our own personal needs. I think that's a challenge for the Canadian church. I think that's a challenge for us. Everybody prays better prayers when they're in a problem. The problem with that is if we don't see the miraculous, often we level off and stop contending for miracles because we come to the conclusion it doesn't work. You cannot be in this thing for very long before you realize it's not as though Jesus says, just do this and you always get that. As a spiritual family, we have navigated the waters of disappointment, of things that we've walked through, contended for, and what is promised and what we experience, there's a gap. We have to acknowledge that. And the way that we acknowledge it, Romans 12:12 says that we weep with those who weep and we rejoice with those who rejoice. We find a way to journey and recognize that our responsibility is not the result of faith. Our responsibility is the journey of faith. And disappointment, it's easy for every person in this room to pull in a testimony of a time when a prayer for a miracle didn't work. That's easy. That's low-hanging fruit. That takes nothing. No effort at all. But there are testimonies that we've also walked through as a church family. There are testimonies that we're living in right now of answered prayer, of shrunk tumors, of things that have been reversed, surgeries that should have been, 30% effective that then at the end of it, should have been, well, you'll be deaf in one ear. And we've watched God do something completely miraculous where people are perfectly well. We've seen God answer prayer time and time again. So the question is, what testimony will you feed your soul? Will I feed myself the testimony of disappointment? That's an easy meal. Because even outside the house of the Lord, outside the household of faith, you'll find those testimonies all over the place. Those are the statistics. Those are what they say. Those are the prognoses. But in the house of God, we have an assignment to draw near to the Lord, not because we're trying to get something out of him, but the Bible does tell us that we should eagerly desire, 1 Corinthians 14:1, we should eagerly desire spiritual gifts. Who should eagerly desire spiritual gifts? Charismatic churches. That's what Paul was talking about. Just charismatic churches. Only the church in Corinth. He was just talking to them. But then we cherry pick all the other scriptures that we like, but not that. Why? Because it's easy to level off where we've been disappointed. I have reason to level off where I've been disappointed. Tomorrow is the 23rd birthday of my youngest daughter. She's not with us. We've walked the road of disappointment. So you don't have a pastor that's preaching theory at you and disregarding your pain and disappointment. What I'm saying to you is what we need to learn to do is grieve and weep and believe and persist all at the same time. Holy Spirit, help us. Help us to move toward your promise without losing steam when we've experienced disappointment. Easier said than done, but not impossible. Because God is the same. And so we don't come with a very oversimplified theology. Some oversimplified theology that you will hear from people is because of the relative ease of their lives. They're able to say to you, I don't know, always works for me. That's what I do. I don't have any problems. I haven't experienced anything like that. And that's what Paul was dealing with when he was talking about the super apostles, just claiming all their easy road stuff. That's not where we're headed as a church. What I'm saying is signs and wonders are a part of the first fruits of the devoted. And it doesn't mean that we have some just punch in the code and do this, and this is what God does every single time. What it means is that we live by faith. It's not the same as just understanding, do this, get that. It's not mathematical, it's faith. but we trust God in the in-between. And our responsibility is not the result. Our responsibility is the journey and obedience. And as we learn that, we learn how to walk with the Lord. So we need to learn how to contend for the miraculous, not just to meet our own personal needs, but rather to see the glory of God awaken a spiritual curiosity all around us.